Junk, noun, used to describe old or discarded articles that are considered useless or of little value. For example, Mike likes to write skits because he thinks they're funny, but really they are junk, and so is he. Junk.
Hello, and welcome to the Wham Provides, where the food from plants and animals keeps us satisfied. We can grow it, find it, or catch it for dinner. Come and learn how to get it from a pro to beginner.
Junk. It's on the street. It's in the water. And it might just be in your own backyard. Junk is a fun word with a pretty... Junk is a fun word with a pretty bad rap. Mostly used to describe old items that are considered useless or of little value, the term junk is often slapped onto anything that just doesn't look pretty. A junk car, junk television, junk food. The negative connotations are clear. So why am I so stoked about junk, and how does it relate to gardening? When I was a kid, I used to keep this big old D-cell battery beside my bed. The battery had long been drained and hadn't been used to provide power to anything in years. But still, for me, it was priceless. Heavy in weight and ergonomically fitting in the hand, that old D-cell battery was the last line of defense between me and all of the monsters hiding underneath my bed. And best of all, it was unsuspecting. I couldn't have my friends and family thinking that I was scared to go to bed at night, so I just kept an inconspicuous piece of trash by me that nobody would think twice about. What others saw as junk, I saw as a weapon of mass destruction. It was in its perceived lack of value that I realized its true beauty.
Weed tea, a liquid fertilizer made by adding weeds to water and letting them ferment for several months. Did he mention it stinks?
So this is about the point in the video where I should be quoting some sort of aphorism about trash and treasure, right? Or about how beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That seems too convenient though. A story riddled with cliche, destined to be buried deep on YouTube with the hundreds and thousands of other videos about reclaimed materials and minimalism. This, on the other hand, is a story about economics. Nothing romantic about it. Supply and demand. How do we, as gardeners, find undervalued items and reveal their unrealized potential? Well, your backyard sure is a good place to start. Green-thumbed humans have been unlocking the power of trash by way of composting for thousands of years. A stone tablet from ancient Mesopotamia dating back to 2350 BC first speaks of compost being made, but archaeological evidence suggests that humans have been making it for more than 12,000 years. Composting, as most of us know, is the process of taking old organic material, mixing it all together, and letting it decompose until it turns into soil. Kitchen scraps like old fruits and vegetables that were once bound for the trash are now redirected into the garden where they can add some nutrients back for the next generation of plants to grow. When we compost, our gardens become junk from the ground up.
Rather than buying landscaping fabric to suffocate the weeds that are in my garden, what I've decided to do instead is collect cardboard boxes that I had from my move and lay these down on top of the soil, which will suffocate those weeds.
These boxes were all acquired from various dumpsters in which I so eloquently and definitely legally dove into.
What are you talking about? I don't hoard boxes.
Some were originally for sake and rice wines, and others for clothing and houseware items. Once I got a hold of them, they were used to move all of my partner and I's possessions into our new house.
And alas, they are being laid to rest here for their final dying duty. Bringeth me some food, thy boxes, and you shall pass from this realm to the next. Perhaps in your next life you will be something like a radish or a blueberry.
Xylophilus, adjective, attracted to wood, growing or living in or on wood, as in, the hardest part about being xylophilus is the loss of good solid wood.
I love wood. In fact, my fiance actually thinks I have a wood problem. That came out wrong. I don't have a wood problem. I just think I know good wood when I see it. That also came out wrong. Big wood, small wood, hardwood, or softwood. Heck, I'll even take plywood. Cut it, hammer it, chip it, dip it? Wood does it all. Plus, it's readily available at little to no cost, so what's not to love?
So I found these end boards here for a bed set, just laying on the side of the road. Somebody had clearly given them up as trash. I feel like that's a pretty nice looking end to a garden bed.
This is kind of the rough idea of what I'm thinking. Take these beds here, for instance. Aside from the hammer and nails that I used to slap it all together, these beds were sourced from entirely reclaimed materials. Part pallet, part plywood, and part bed frame. All of this old shit was found on the side of the road somewhere. With their mismatched cuts and decrepit sideboards, none of these garden beds were exactly built to be the belle of the ball, but nothing a little bit of makeup can't fix. Well, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. I wouldn't say I'm proud of my woodwork, but I also wouldn't say I'm not proud of it. For every project that I delay or ruin something with total incompetence, I learn something new. Those garden beds bear the scars of experimentation and honestly have quite the story to tell. Just like their daddy. Their wood daddy. I built a second composting station next to the existing one. Having two allows me to make two separate piles of compost at different stages of completion, so that I can rotate between them. Once again, it's a bit of a hodgepodge of miscellaneous street wood that I found. These planks were practically begging to hop in with the first person to pull over. Most of the compost from the original station was put in the first raised garden bed that I built, and then the rest of it I put in the second composting station.
So I just had an idea for a raised garden bed that's either going to be genius or the opposite. You see, initially I sort of planned to just take out those stumps and to take out the roots, but
I called a few local arborists and each of them quoted me around $150 per stump to dig out, and I had a lot of them, so it amounted to about $750. I can think of much better ways to spend $750, so I opted to incorporate them into a raised garden bed build instead. Megan had the idea for the crossbeam, and she was right. It looks pretty cool. So far, this garden hasn't actually costed me a cent. That's a lie. I bought a wheelbarrow and a pitchfork and a broad fork and some chicken wire for the sieve, gloves, and some digging tools. $20 for horse manure compost. Okay, maybe I did buy some stuff, but I needed those things. And if I could have found free versions of those things with the limited amount of time that I had, I would have. Here are some of the few things I did manage to acquire for free though. All right, so we're gonna go on a little bit of a tour of some of the reclaimed materials here in the garden. So I think the first and most notable one to start out with is this pallet build. These boards here on the bottom are all obviously taken from pallets. And then these boards on the top here were actually given to me from my next door neighbor who lives just over there. Next up, we have these little plant labels here. As you can see, this one says broccoli. This is taken from a yogurt container. And next up, I use a lot of like scrap pieces of wood to put down on top of new seedlings that are in, which keeps the bed underneath it nice and moist. And then once the sprouts start to come up, then I pull the piece of wood and just let them kind of come up like they have over here. All right, and then while we're still outside here, we got this trellis. It's composed of bamboo wood, which I just found on the side of the road somewhere. And then right here we got, this is like banana water. My next door neighbor, Rob, told me that if you put banana peels in some water like this, the potassium will leach into the water, and then you can use that to water your tomatoes, and then your tomatoes will just like absolutely pop off. So junk fruit equals great growing fertilizer. And speaking of water, we got these pails over here, which I'm using to collect rainwater, which is kind of just junk water. And last but certainly not least, all you gym bros out there will recognize this. Creatine and protein powder. These make great little buckets for planting stuff. So I've been starting seeds in here and then moving them out. Well, that's all I managed to do over the winter and the spring, which was largely dictated by the amount of light that I had in the evenings after work. Full transparency, it was not exactly easy getting these materials for free. I scoured used marketplaces for months and kept my eyes open basically everywhere that I was driving for pieces of wood that I could scrap together on the side of the road. Guy posted this on Marketplace for free. When I'd approached local businesses about potentially grabbing some of their pallets, they told me that they were like vital parts of their supply chain. But I stayed persistent and I kept asking, and eventually I acquired a pretty decent stash. This is a functional food growing space that meets my current needs, so now I can move on to growing food, which is pretty sweet. I can also start some other projects like rebuilding the fence that's falling apart, replacing the god-awful door to the shed that's barely on its last legs, and setting up some sort of winter protection system for my crops. Upcycling, recycling, reclaiming, use whatever words you want. They're all pretty rad. The fact that people around the world are building all sorts of cool shit with reclaimed materials is freaking sweet. It's a movement in response to the rising cost of living, but more importantly, it's like a giant middle finger to consumerism and a bit of a nod of respect to the environment. So go out, scour the streets, make haste, pursue the unclaimed bounty that is junk.